Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Talk with an Angel. I'm your host, Angel McGinnis. On today's show, we are pleased to have as our guest Pittsburgh Chapter Director of Safe Families for Children, Rachel Walker. Let's give Rachel a hand as we welcome her to the show. Welcome to Talk with an Angel, Rachel.
Thanks so much for having me.
Can you tell us the who, what, when, where, and why Safe Families got started?
Sure. Safe Families for Children started 15 years ago in Chicago, and it started with a child psychologist, Dr. David Anderson, and he was working in a group home at the time helping foster children, and a mom came up to him and said, "I need you to watch my kid for some time." And he said, no, you don't understand. I can't help your kid because he's not in the system yet. And she went back to him and said, "No, you don't understand. If you don't help him, he will go in the system." And that really hit Dr. Dave's heart. And so he helped the child, but then he realized even deeper there's this need within hurting families and hurting children. So he wrote a letter to the mayor of Chicago and said, "Hey, I think the church can help. I think we can find volunteer families within the church who are willing to open their homes to help children in crisis." And he said, "Oh yeah, and we can save you money because we'll be preventing kids from going into the foster care system." So they took a risk and they decided to help fund this initiative, and that was 15 years ago. It's been going strong ever since, and the goal is to help these hurting families, to help these hurting children, provide care and support. It's spread to 70 cities in the U.S., and it's also in Canada and the U.K.
That's great. Now, what is the mission and vision of Safe Families for Children? And can you tell us what biblical hospitality is?
Yeah, so the mission and vision, a lot of the mission and vision is wrapped up in biblical hospitality.
Okay.
And biblical hospitality isn't just coffee on Sunday mornings or having friends over to your house. It's a love of strangers.
Okay.
So it's teaching the church, it's teaching people in the congregation what this means to love strangers, to open your home to strangers and families in crisis. And loving strangers is loving some of those kids of families who are in crisis that you wouldn't have met in other ways and other means. So our vision is to help families in crisis. We want to surround them with biblical love and the body of Christ.
That's great, because we are called to love our neighbor.
We are.
Now, can you share what your background is and your journey on how you became the Pittsburgh Chapter Director?
Sure, yeah. So I have worked with children since I was a kid. I've taught swim lessons. I've worked with low-income families and high-income families as a nanny, worked in preschool settings, worked with kids with special needs, a whole long variety. And then eventually, at one point, I felt led to go to seminary. So I went to seminary and got a degree in ministry leadership, wanting to help equip the church. I met my husband there, and I ended up staying in South Carolina. We were in South Carolina for a bit, and ended up working for a nonprofit that dealt with poverty issues and education and outreach on things like Medicaid and SNAP. We did poverty simulations to help the general public understand what it's like.
Yeah, to make that awareness.
Yeah, to build awareness and empathy and compassion. Mm-hmm. My husband moved up here for his job. He's a pastor, and I was praying and seeking what God would have next, and I saw the opportunity with Safe Families, and I felt that just was a beautiful mesh of working with the church, of helping families and working with kids in a way in crisis and really sharing the love of Christ with them.
That's great. Now, since Safe Families is new to the greater Pittsburgh area, why start a chapter here?
There's a need here. The short and simple is there's a need here. Last year, there were 12,000 reports of child abuse that were investigated in Allegheny County alone. 6,000 of those or so resulted in children being removed from their homes. That means there were 6,000 families in some sort of crisis that the children could still remain in their homes, but they had to investigate. That does not count the number of families that call the county each year just in desperation, wanting to turn their kids over to the county because they can't handle parenting and they need help. And that doesn't count the numerous additional phone calls. So there's thousands of families in crisis each year who need help, who need support, who need a friend, who need someone to walk along them and help them in this journey.
There definitely is a need. I mean, you can see all the reports on the news. In general, how does Safe Families work with families in crisis?
So in general, if a family in crisis calls, they're going to call with a need for help with their children. So we would work and we would do some intake for them, and then we would match them with what we call a host family. And that would be a family who's willing to take that child in for a short amount of time. It could be 1 or 2 nights. It could be a few months, depending on that need. And we want to work with that parent then to help make sure they're taking steps to meet their goals. Like if they need, if they're in a homeless situation, we want to make sure, help them, equip them through someone we call a family coach and meeting that need. And we want to help the host family also make sure they're comfortable working with the child and they have support around them as well. So they'll help that family in crisis through a temporary short-term posting and also through working with that family.
Okay. Now, how is your organization different from CYF in the foster care system? And is Safe Families working with CYF, or is it?
Well, the big way we're different is all the hostings we do, all those families in crisis, they are voluntarily turning their children over and they maintain full parental rights.
Okay.
So because it's voluntary, they can also call us up if the child has been there, say, 2 nights and they initially said they wanted a week. They can call after 2 nights and say, everything's good, I want my child to come back home, and we will arrange that and make sure that happens. So, and we also encourage a positive relationship between the host family and that family in crisis. So we want the host family to really develop a relationship so that they know that the host family is for them and for their kid. And sometimes in the foster care system, in CYF, it feels adversarial.
Yeah.
The child's being taken away. And even if the foster family doesn't feel that way, just because the child has been taken and not the parent hasn't asked for help, that is a big concern and a big difference. At this time we're developing, and then in CYF, at this time we're developing a relationship with CYF. We hope to partner with them in the future. They know what we're doing. They like it and supportive, but we are not officially partnered with them.
Okay. Since this is a new chapter, is your greatest need finding host families right now? And what is a host family and the qualifications to become one?
Yes, our greatest need is finding host families right now. So host families could be someone who's willing to do as little as 2 nights a month, like maybe 2 nights, maybe 4 times a year. Just back in Cleveland, they had an example of a family where the mom had to go to the ER and she brought 4 kids with her. She had no one to watch those kids and she had to be admitted. Because she had to be admitted and stay a second night, the county was almost ready, the hospital was just about ready to call the county and have CYF in Cleveland come take the kids. But because someone there knew about Safe Families, and there was a family who was willing to let those kids stay with them for less than 24 hours, that family got to stay together. Those 4 children could stay together. So host families who are willing to do something like that are a huge need. The qualifications for a host family are that you have to have an open home and heart. We provide training, there's background checks, we'll do a walk through your home, and there's an application and reference checks that we will help you go through. But it's really just, do you have an open heart? Do you have an open home? Can you make space for a child or children in crisis?
That's great. Now, are host families licensed foster families or no?
No, they're not licensed. I just shared a little bit of that process. And the only other thing we really want is them to be connected to a church. So they're not licensed. It's not the same rigor at all as a foster family. It's a less rigorous. It's still a comprehensive review and training, but it's much less rigorous.
And what is a typical host family like?
I don't think there's specifically a typical host family. Anyone could be a host family. Now, it could be a family that the mom or dad is a stay-at-home mom or dad, and they're willing to help during the week. It could be a retired family or empty nesters who are willing to help because they have extra room in their house. But it also could be a working couple or a single individual who knows that on the weekends, maybe just one weekend, a few times a year, they're willing to take that child in and help. So there's a huge range of who it could be and who's willing to help.
That's good. It's good that it's very broad and very diverse.
Yeah.
Now, what type of contact will the host family have with the biological parent or legal guardian?
So we encourage contact. So we want to help them make sure they're scheduling a phone call for the biological parent to have with the child, at least daily, somewhat depending on what the family in crisis needs. If it's a longer term hosting, maybe a few weeks or a month, we want to encourage them to meet at a neutral location, maybe a McDonald's that has a play place or something like that, for them to have a meal together, and so the parent can see their child and see how it's doing, and really so that parent knows that the host family is really for them. Yes. They're not trying to take the child away, and to encourage that building of a relationship.
That's good. Now, what are the ages and the backgrounds of children typically placed with the host family? What if the child has any type of behavior problems? Is there?
So we will not work with a child who has an open CYF case. So it won't be something that the foster care system would work with. We will work with children 18 and under. Our typical age nationwide is 5 and under. So their background is going to be diverse because crises can hit. We really don't have a specific background. It could be, a parent going through homelessness. With all the flooding, it could be a parent who's facing a crisis with flooding and they lost their house and they just don't know what to do. It could be a loss of job. It could be a parent needing to go through job training and they don't have someone to watch their child. Or it's a medical emergency. So there's just so many diverse backgrounds, but it's coming from a family that doesn't have a great support system around them in terms of the behavior and acting out. So we will do some training on that when they go through our training. But we also have family coaches that can come through that, the host family can call if they have a concern. If something's happened where they're like, wow, this is too much, they can call that host, that family coach and get help and coaching and support. And that family coach checks in with them. If it's something that the kid arrives and they realize that it's just really not a good fit for the family, or there's some acting out that's beyond their capability to do with, we can change the placement. We can end the placement or end the hosting with that family so that child can go to someone. Maybe they're with other kids and it wasn't aware that they really don't get along with that kids. Maybe it's that it's a little boy with other boys and doesn't get along with those boys because they feel too competitive. We could look at moving that child to a different home. Of course, with the permission and consent of the parent in crisis.
Okay. Now, how long does, well, we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but what would you say, how long is a typical stay with the host family? Is it, or it varies?
So it does vary because there's a need for everything. Nationwide, the typical stay is 40 days or less.
Okay.
But as I said, even one night, even being willing to open your home for one night can change a child's life and keep families together.
Okay. Thank you. Now, when we come back, we will find out from Rachel how churches and the community at large can help safe families succeed. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Join Angel and her partners. When you partner with Angel, you are among a special group of people who stand alongside her to see more lives of young people changed through her informative shows. Your monthly support will enable Angel to reach youth all around the world. You can become an Angel partner today by making a monthly pledge of $25 or more, and you will receive our Angel Pack that includes a backpack, mug, and t-shirt. Just go to our website and donate today. And thank you in advance for becoming an Angel partner. Here are the top 10 reasons why people don't go to church. Number 10, the pastor doesn't respond to my remote control. Number 9, 3 letters, NFL. Number 8, I don't have kids yet. Number 7, I have kids. Number 6, people that happy give me the creeps. Number 5, last time I kneeled, I had a hard time getting up again. Number 4, I'm a good person and I want to avoid hearing otherwise. Number 3, prefer Doritos to those little crackers they pass out. Number 2, when I want to feel guilty, I just call my mother. And the number 1 reason people don't go to church is because they haven't tried New Vision Community Church yet. Put down the remote and forget the excuses. People around town are discovering that church can be different. At New Vision Community Church, you'll find a casual atmosphere, great music, relevant messages, and friendly people who genuinely care about each other. Stop in this Sunday at 11 a.m. and leave the top 10 to late night.
Welcome back to Talk with an Angel. I'm your host, Angel McGinnis, and our special guest is Rachel Walker from the Pittsburgh chapter of Safe Families for Children. So, Rachel, are the biological parents and guardians allowed to have contact with their child while they're placed with the host family, which we kind of already touched on that a little bit before break?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, it's encouraged because part of the whole goal and vision and heart of Safe Families is that those host families become true friends, not just taking their kid and watching them for a while, but become true friends with the biological parents.
Okay. Now, will there be someone who will check up on the child that is placed with the host family?
Yeah, and as we talked about, because I'm giving long answers, we recruit a whole system of volunteers around that host family, and one of them is someone called a family coach. And this is someone typically that's going to have some experience with child welfare. Maybe they're a counselor, a school counselor, even sometimes caseworkers from the county want to be that coach so they can have just a more low-key and honest relationship with the host family and with that family in crisis.
The family in crisis as well. Now, is there any financial support for the host families to deter the cost of school, daycare, medical needs, etc.?
There is no financial support provided through Safe Families specifically. One of the things we do make sure is that the children coming in do have medical insurance, and the host family is given permission to bring the child to the doctor and things like that. So if there is a medical crisis, there will be medical insurance. One of the things we do encourage churches that are involved to do is recruit families. We call them resource friends.
Okay. And
and these are people who might not have the time or energy to volunteer, but they would be able to provide things like maybe a Giant Eagle gift card or a Walmart gift card to that host family to help deter some of the cost of that, of having an extra mouth to feed.
Yes. Now, can a host family adopt a child if they wanted to?
No, we are not an adoption service. Our reunification rate is 94%. So most of those kids that are going to come into Safe Families are going back to their family of origin. And that's our heart and our goal. If there was ever any situation that it came to adoption, we would refer them to a different agency.
Okay. And we already kind of touched on this regarding siblings staying together, and you gave the example in Cleveland, so I won't touch on that again. But why do you think host families are willing to help?
There's a lot of reasons host families are willing to help. One, I think they see the need. They see the need and they realize that this is something practical that they can do. Another reason is it's a great way to actually serve as a family. So people who have children in their household, this is some way they can teach their child that their faith and their relationship with Jesus is not just a Sunday morning thing, but it's throughout the week. It's throughout their daily lives. It's how they're to live. They're to open their homes to strangers, to families in crisis. They're to live and be the body of Christ. And that's really important. And I think for some people, it's an act of obedience. The Bible talks about pursuing hospitality, loving these strangers that are in the midst. Jesus talks about loving our neighbor as ourself. And when that Pharisee seeking to justify himself said, well, who is our neighbor? He gave the story of the Good Samaritan, of a Jewish person going somewhere and then someone from a different culture, social, economic background coming and helping that Jewish person in crisis. And I think today that we can often get segmented and just be in our little group and connect it with people we know and we're comfortable with. But God's calling us to do so much more. And connecting with those families in crisis often brings us out of our comfort zone. It brings us into contact with people who are different. And I think that's so important. And some people realize this is a missing part of my faith. This is something I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not. So this is an opportunity. And also it's a gospel opportunity. You get to share the gospel. You get to tell these little kids who might not be hearing it in their home who Jesus is. as you build a relationship with that family in crisis, you get to share Jesus with them, not just in word, but with deed. Mm-hmm. And I think all these different reasons are why people decide, yeah, I can do this. I have the time and space. I would do it for my kids. I would do it for my grandkids. I would do it for nieces and nephews. Why can't I do it for these hurting and vulnerable children?
That's true. Now, so Rachel, how does Safe Families actually measure this success?
We measure success not so much by numbers, in my mind, but by stories. And we actually see success as a family coming back and doing a repeat placement. So where the foster care system, if a child comes back again, it's considered a failure. We consider that a success because that's that family realizing that there is a support system there, realizing that they don't have to turn to an unsafe situation for their child, but knowing. And so that is that family who was in crisis, who maybe the next time it's not so much a crisis, but a need, realizing and starting to plan ahead, and that's giving them tools to grow. Seeing relationships built so that sometimes host families will stop hosting because they build such deep relationships with some of the families that have come through that they're like godparents to those children. Those families are in their life, and that's success to us.
And that is a success.
Yeah.
If I don't want to be a host family, are there other ways that I can help out individually or as a family?
Absolutely. So I've talked some about a family coach,
Yes.
and I mentioned briefly resource friends. There are also something called family friends, and those are people who might be willing to babysit for the host family, provide just short-term relief for that family. They also might help with meals for that host family because, hey, they're getting a whole another kid in their house.
Yeah.
That can cause a little bit more chaos, and so having meals, transportation for that child is also really important. Maybe they're in a different school district and they're only going to be in that host family's house for a few days, and so they just might need transportation to or from their school. So there's different ways that people can get involved, and obviously we always need more prayer. We need people to be praying for those families in crisis and for the volunteers who are welcoming these children into their homes.
Yeah, and prayer is always needed.
Amen.
So, how can the church community and the community at large help you succeed?
So church community is one of the things we need right now is really to connect with more people, more volunteers. So church communities can help build that, and community at large can help us connect with people who might be interested in hosting or volunteering with Safe Families. And that's a huge need. Recognizing that welcoming kids and caring for children is important is just a huge need. So connecting to those host families, and eventually it's going to be helping refer and connect us to the families in crisis. But right now our focus is on recruiting more volunteers so we can have a larger capacity for helping
Families.
Yeah.
Does Safe Families partner with any other organizations besides churches?
We are going to be working on building additional relationships with some nonprofits who would be able to refer children with us. So we're slowly in that process of building relationships, yeah.
That's great. Now, are there any upcoming events or initiatives you would like to share with our audience?
So yeah, September 8th, we're going to be having a training. So if you're interested in Safe Families, you want to learn more, we have applications for all the various positions that you can go ahead and fill out an application for, and we'll be doing our training September 8th.
Okay. And remember the date, September 8th. And then I'm sure they can get all that information on the website as well. Okay. Now, what final words would you like to leave us with today?
That whoever you are, wherever you are, continue to pursue hospitality. Whether it's with Safe Families or some other way, learn to love and embrace your neighbor, those people who are different than you, and welcome them into your home. Learn to provide space and rhythm to have friends and neighbors over even for a meal, because hospitality is something we're called to as Christians, and we're called to pursue, and do it as a family so it becomes normal and natural within the lifeblood of who you are as a Christian and imprints into your family as a whole.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now let's thank Rachel for carving out some time from her busy schedule to talk about how Safe Families for Children is ready to make an impact in the lives of families in crisis. Now, I am actually going to be on a hiatus for the summer, but you can watch some of my previous shows on Facebook, on my Facebook page, or on the church YouTube channel. I'll be back to broadcasting live on Saturday, October 6th at 11 a.m. My special guest will be Reverend Jerry Craig, pastor of New Vision Community Church, and our topic will be Halloween. And don't forget to like and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This has been Talk with an Angel with yours truly, Angel McGinnis, and have a great summer.